fellow Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be doing another review roundup. We're talking about 3 films, 2 that came out this past weekend, and 1 that we got to see a sneak peek of that comes out this week. First, we got The Killer's Game, starring Dave Bautista and Sofia Boutella. Next, we have Speak No Evil, which stars James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis. And lastly, we've got Transformers 1, which had a sneak peek this past weekend that comes out this Friday, with voice cast of Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, and Brian Tyree Henry. First, we will start with The Killer's Game. The main synopsis of Killer's Game is when a hitman is diagnosed with a terminal illness, he puts out a hit on himself so that way his current girlfriend doesn't see him deteriorate and wither away. But when he's misdiagnosed, he tries to call off the hit, but the hitmen basically say, nope, we want to take you out because you're a very popular hitman. It stars Dave Bautista, Sofia Boutella, and Palm Clementif, as well as the rest of the cast. You got Ben Kingsley, you got WWE wrestler Drew McIntyre. Pretty solid cast all around. Scott Adkins, Terry Crews. Brian and myself, we were both slightly anticipating this film when it came out because it looked like a very fun trailer. And I think we both said the synopsis of it, it's either going to be fun or it's going to be really, really bad. And I would like to say, at least with Killer's Game, is the acting great? No. not by a long shot. But it is a fun, entertaining R-rated action film. It's got some great brutality to it that makes you just go, ooh, when you're watching it. And while the acting isn't great, it is an entertaining film throughout. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Some people, I've seen the ratings for it already, are not going to go super high on it because I think they're watching it in a way that it's not intended, which is to be this, like, seriously great acted film. But for me, I kind of chalked this up to a movie that much like 2 films that Brian and I both loved, Guns Akimbo and Boss Level, where it's arcadey, zany action. You know, some stuff's a little unbelievable. Batista is like pretty much the fucking Terminator in this film, and he's kind of unstoppable. But he's got that heart of gold in his character. He's, you know, Batista's always been like that kind of soft-spoken giant of a character. And he plays it really well in here. He kind of knows his wheelhouse, even though he's trying to branch out of that type of character now for future roles. But he does a good job here. He's not going to win an Oscar or anything off of this kind of role. But as the character Joe Flood, he's an endearing character with the brutality that he offers. Sofia Boutella's Maisie, we're used to her being kind of the action hero type, and we've seen that before in Rebel Moon and Kingsman and Atomic Blonde. But here she's actually just kind of playing the stereotypical, you know, girlfriend, damsel in distress type character, which I wasn't really that happy for her in this role. I kind of wanted her to be a little bit more of a kick-ass type role. So, I mean, if there's a knock on this, Sofia Boutella she's utilized in the film, but not utilized in a movie such as this with Hitmen to her fullest potential. Palm Clementif plays Mariana. I think most people just know her as Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy. She actually gets to have some decent speaking role in this, in the parts that she's in, because she's kind of a supporting character in here. But I love that we got to see her and Bautista work together again. Their chemistry when they were Mantis and Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy was always a highlight in those films. And getting to see them team up again in this movie was a lot of fun. Terry Crews, if you like Terry Crews, you'll like him in this movie. He does great in it. And Ben Kingsley has got some great liners with him and Bautista throughout the film. Like I said, the action, over the top, but fun. Little ridiculous at points, but still entertaining throughout the film. There was never a point where I was going, oh, God, this is boring. I was never bored watching this film. Like I said, acting, not the greatest. But it was a fun movie to watch all the way around. It's something I would recommend if you guys kind of want to just turn your brain off and watch a fun, bloody action film, because it's definitely bloody in this movie. And I like that, too, because we're seeing so many with a cast like this. We don't probably get this more as like a PG-13 action film, but we actually get the R-rated in this, and it's actually a lot of fun because they go that route instead of trying to PG-13 it up with less blood and less brutality in the fight sequences. So for me, I know this, you know, a lot of people aren't really loving this film, but I actually really enjoyed this for what it was. It's one of those movies that I could just turn on when it's on, you know, TV or streaming or something, and just do stuff around the house, and then stop and watch the action sequences, and and then by, you know, halfway through, I'm sitting there just watching the whole rest of the film. So for me, I'm giving Killer's Game a 77%. I think what it sets out to do, it exceeds. and definitely was a surprise. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but I have had a lot of fun watching it, and I think you guys would too. Going to our next film, we got Speak No Evil. This is a remake of American adaptation. I think it's of a Dutch film that came out in 2022. Never saw that version of it, but I did read up on it after I watched this to see what the differences are. But this stars James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy. 3 actors I just straight up love everything that they're in. And the synopsis for Speak No Evil is a family is invited to spend a whole weekend in a lonely home in the countryside, but as the weekend progresses, they realize that a dark side lies within the family who invited them. Now, the one thing without this movie, I think I'm not in the minority in this, I think I'm in the majority of this, is they advertise the hell out of this film. You could not go to a movie in the last 3-4 months without seeing this damn trailer, to the point where it got annoying every time this trailer came on. A, because it's a longer trailer, and B, it didn't matter if you were seeing like a PG movie or an R movie. Somehow Speak No Evil just always seemed to creep into the movie theater's trailer reel, and it was just an overabundance of the same trailer being shown over and over and over again. So it almost got to the point where I was like, I almost wasn't even going to see this, because I was so just agitated by every time I see this movie. The last thing I wanted to do was sit there and watch a whole film of this. But it had good word of mouth. I heard great things about the original cut, the Dutch film version of it. And like I said, I love James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy. So I definitely want to check it out. Now, Speak No Evil lives and dies off of the awkward and just uneasy situations that the lead, James McAvoy, puts you through. And McAvoy does a phenomenal job in this film as Paddy. He's got this charm to him, but there's also this kind of like darkness to him that you can't quite tell if he's really a bad guy or if he's just got these internal demons that he fights with every day to try to be the best father and husband that he can. For anyone who's seen the trailers, you guys know where this is going to go. Mackenzie Davis plays Louise, and Scoot plays her husband Ben, and they've got a daughter played by Alix West-Leifer. Apologies if I said that wrong. She plays Agnes. And Patty is married to Ciara, played by Aisling Franciosi. I'm probably saying that wrong as well. And they've got a kid named Ant, played by Dan Hugh. It's a very small cast. But as they're hanging out, there's always just this awkward tension going on. Either Patty's saying something or trying to force a narrative onto Mackenzie Davis's Louise, or it's how Patty treats his son Ant. There's always a scene. Every scene seems to start out normal, but then kind of goes into a downward spiral of uneasiness, or just a storming off into a different area kind of situation, until we get to the inevitable twist in the film, which I think most people will know just by watching the trailers alone. Like I said, James McAvoy is such an incredible actor, and he sinks his teeth into his role, because he's literally, by the end of the film, you're supposed to want to root for the protagonist, and he's clearly the antagonist in this film, but he's so damn good at this role that I couldn't help but want James McAvoy to win in this film. And the other reason for that is, and this is also a negative for me, and it's something that I just cannot stand in terms of a horror or thriller, whatever you want to call this, a horror or thriller film. If you can't like the leads or the protagonists of the film that you're supposed to root for, I immediately start to check myself out. And it's hard for me to give a shit about the lives and the well-being of the good guys in the film when the bad guy's so charismatic and fun to watch, and the other ones are just so annoyingly dull to the point where you actually just want them off screen. And while I love Mackenzie Davis and Scoot McNairy as actors, they are both two just unlikable people in this film. Louise is just one of those women that just is stuck up, snooty, feels like she's kind of always right, and wants to basically speak up and talk down to people. And she does a great job in this film. She does. But, oh my god, she is a chore to get through in this film. And Scoot McNairy's character is just this guy who kind of just is like, everything's gone wrong for me, so I'm just kind of this poor schlub who kind of just gets pushed around by Louise or even Patty throughout this film, and he's just kind of this depressing Eeyore of like a Winnie the Pooh type character. And I love Skeet McNairy as an actor, or Scoot McNairy as an actor, but God, you put him and Mackenzie Davis as Louise together, and they are just the most depressingly annoying couple on TV. And you just really want McAvoy's Patty to succeed in what he's trying to do by the end of the film. Also, Agnes's character is not, the daughter is really not that great as well. She is better as a person compared to Louise and Ben, but the main crux of this film is there's one point where there's a fork in the road. They could get out of there and escape, or they can stay there and see what happens with Patty. And the reasoning for why they stay is the dumbest fucking reason. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, this all is happening because of this one particular thing, and I'm not going to say it for spoiler reasons. And that is the dumbest reason to have stayed in a situation that you don't feel safe in. And it just immediately just kind of puts me on a negative mindset coming into the film. I think the aspects of the film work really well. Aisling, who plays Sierra, the wife of Patty, I think she does a great job of kind of playing this like, almost like this bright sunshine of a character next to Patty's kind of thunderstorm. I think Dan Hugh as Ant, I think he does a good job in the film as well. It's just the situations that happen in this film. You got your typical horror situations where you're like, oh my god, why would you do that? Or why won't you finish the job? If you have someone down, finish it, kill them. Don't just leave and expect them not to come after you in the next scene. Or why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? There's so many situations where you're just sighing out of annoyance with the characters in this film, not James McAvoy. And you really, like I said, you just kind of want McAvoy to win in the end, which is I think the wrong thing they're wanting to do. I did read how the original film ended. The third act for this film is completely different than the third act of the original Dutch film. And I'm not going to lie, kind of would have preferred the ending to the original film if they had done it with these characters. Which is a bummer for me, but I get it. You can't have an ending like that in America because people don't want to see movies like that. I do. But the first two acts are relatively the same as the Dutch original film, but the third act completely goes in a different direction, and I think it's for the less. So at the end of the day, for me, I go to watch this for McAvoy's performance, but there's not much greatness there in terms of this. Like, it's one of those, like, I'm glad I watched it. I would probably never watch it again. McAvoy's fantastic in the film, but everyone else is solid to annoyingly bad. Not in terms of the performance, just in terms of their characters. So for me, I'm going to give Speak No Evil a 61%. Coming to our final film, Transformers 1. I'm a big Transformers fan. I loved the original series. I loved Beast Wars. I loved all that. Not the biggest fan of the Transformers films outside of the animated one from the 80s. But recently, Transformers has been starting to turn a leaf on us. The Michael Bay films are not great. Some of them are just downright awful. But Bumblebee was a solidly great kind of like Girl and Her Dog or Boy and His Alien kind of film. And then Transformers last year or 2 years ago, which was kind of also like a prequel to the Michael Bays, or kind of like starting over kind of thing. That one I thought was actually pretty solid and a good step in the right direction. This time we're going back to the animated front. This is the story that we actually have never gotten before. So it's an original Transformers story. At least from my recollection, I don't recall us ever getting a story like this. Because most of the times when we have a Transformers film, it's either Cybertron's been destroyed, Megatron and the Decepticons are bad, Optimus Prime and the Autobots are good. They come across humans and they got to save Earth. And that's kind of how every Transformers film has been. This one, we're going a different route. This is a straight-up origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron, and this is before the War of Cybertrons happened. This is basically how we find out that Optimus Prime and Megatron were actually so close they were like brothers. And this is the story of how they became Optimus Prime and Megatron, to the point where they're not even named that in this film. Optimus Prime, voiced by Chris Hemsworth, he's actually Orion Pax, and Brian Tyree Henry, who plays Megatron, is actually D16. You also got Keegan-Michael Key. He plays B-127, a.k.a. Bumblebee, in this film. The only two characters in here that actually have the same name, sorry, three characters that have the same name, is you got Starscream, voiced by Steve Buscemi. You got John Bailey, who voices Soundwave, and then you got Shockwave, who's also in this film. Those are the only three that actually have the same names throughout the entire crux of the Transformers franchise. But what works with this is that this movie looks like it's dedicated to kids. It looks like it's very much a PG kids film, but much like most animated films that have come out lately, this can be for adults. This can be for the true Transformers fans like myself. And it's not just a kids film. There is some dark elements to this movie. There are definitely some Transformer kills that are actually pretty brutal, but because it's robots, it's okay because it's a kids film. But as I was watching, I was like, wow, they really kind of went dark with the death there of this one character. The voice cast, Chris Hemsworth, I didn't know how I was going to like him as, Optimus Prime because Peter Cullen's voice is so iconic, but he actually does a really good job as Orion Pax, and there's little parts here and there where I kind of was wondering, did they bring Peter Cullen in to change his voice up, or has Chris Hemsworth really kind of adopted the Optimus Prime, tone in his voice? Brian Tyree Henry, same thing goes with D16, aka Megatron. I really, really enjoyed the relationship and the chemistry that Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry brought to Optimus Prime and Megatron, to this brotherhood of friendship between them, that when we do inevitably get to the split that starts the rest of the Transformers franchises off, you're just kind of sad by it. You really wanted this friendship to work out for them, but it's not going to. And I thought that they did a really good job developing and showcasing this relationship between these two characters. Keegan-Michael Key's B-127 as Bumblebee, hilarious throughout. They got the perfect guy to play a character who, throughout the rest of the Transformers franchise, doesn't really have a voice and uses radio, to being a character before he became Bumblebee as a character who cannot stop talking, who's got kind of embarrassing anxiety of being alone, so naturally he just wants everyone to be friends and wants to just keep if it's silent, then things are going wrong, so he always has to talk, and Keegan-Michael Key does a great job with that. Scarlett Johansson plays Alita 1. I'm blanking on what her name actually turns into as the Transformers characters. I'm just not remembering offhand. Scarlett Johansson sounds like she does in every animated film, which is not a bad thing, but she clearly is Scarlett Johansson in the film. She plays a solid number 2 to Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry's Optimus and Megatron throughout the film. Steve Buscemi actually does a really good job as Starscream in the film. John Hamm plays Sentinel Prime. Lawrence Fishburne plays Alpha Trion. All the voice cast is solid in the film. The animation, I think, is decent. It's not the greatest, but it's still very appeasing to the eye. And I mean, and that's the thing, is that a lot of people will judge a film based off the animation alone. I mean, look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a couple years back. It was very comic booky. The faces looked kind of oblong shaped and stuff like that. But the story is what made this movie work. And that's where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films are going great from now on. Their TV series is doing really well as also. And I think with Transformers 1, I loved what we did with this. It's probably, and it could call it recency bias, but this might be the best put together Transformers film that we've ever gotten. Now, the original animated film, that's a classic, but it's it's a regular Transformers film. We've seen that, and you also kind of had to have that built-inness with the television series. Like I said, the Michael Bay films are not great. Bumblebee's good, and the most recent live-action one was pretty solid as well. But this one, I feel like, does a great job of telling the story between these two infamous characters of Optimus Prime and Megatron, and seeing where they ended up, but how did they start. And I said, it's got fun elements here. It's got good action. The whole third act I thought was fantastic for what it did. And I would love to continue on with these characters in this animated situation, to have the war on Cybertron and then have it lead into maybe the live actions, or continue just to keep doing animated, because as long as they have this kind of cast with this kind of backing behind it, I am totally down to see more of these. Now that we are kind of going, that basically in the film is kind of them getting ready to start the war of Cybertron, and I really want to see that film. I really want to see what they do with that, with these characters, with the story we've already built with them throughout this first film. I'm excited to see if they do more with this, and I really, really hope this movie really does well in the box office, so that way we can get more of these characters. So for me, I'm giving Transformers 1 an 87%. It exceeded my expectations, and yes, I'm a beloved Transformers fan of the animated series, but I wasn't really going in with the highest expectations for this film. But word of mouth is high. I also am high on this, and I hope you guys who are Transformers fans really give this one a shot. Do not be turned away by the animation. Do not be turned away that you think it's a kid's film. This is actually a really good animated film, and if it wasn't for Inside Out 2 coming out this year, I'd probably say this is the best animated film of the year. But for me, as of right now, it is the best Transformers film that we have ever gotten. But I hope you guys enjoyed these reviews. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, you can follow some of those social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, obviously Transformers 1 comes out this week. So we've got that already talked about. Let's see what else we got coming up here. We've got Never Let Go. Halle Berry's got a horror film coming out this week. I don't know if I'm going to be seeing that right when it comes out, but we might be able to check that out. Also, on the 21st, I don't know if this is available in my area, but we got Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. I'll probably end up having to wait for that to pop up on Max before I check that out. And then next week, we've got Bagman, Lee, Megalopolis, and the Wild Robot, as well as Amber Alert, Apartment 7A, Azrael, just a lot. Wolves on Apple. I think that gets a Apple TV review or release. I think it comes out on theaters this week, and then also Will and Harper on Netflix. So we've got a ton of movies coming down the pipe. I don't know how much we're going to talk about. It kind of depends on how much Brian and I get to watch. We'll probably come back around here with another Movie Crusaders chat about and talk about those movies for you guys. Also, Killer Heat. That's another one that comes out here on Prime Video. But we're nearing the end of September, which means we are entering the Halloween season, and Brian and I decided we're going to bring back a special Halloween show where we are going to be going over the decades of horror. We're going to do the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and then present-day 2020s. We're going to go over what we like, dislike, overrated, underrated horror films, and we're going to start with the 80s during the first week of October, and we're going to have a new episode come out every week all the way up to Halloween. So I hope you guys check that out, as well as all the other reviews that we have coming up on the channel. So stick with us with those, and until next time, in case I don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.